My wife gave birth. Then a stranger burst into the hospital claiming the baby was his. That's when I learned the truth about her lies. He said she was his daughter. I'm Logan, 31. My wife, Sienna, 29, just gave birth to our first child, supposedly our first child, 3 weeks early after a messy labor. The plot twist started in the recovery room. I was doing the new dad shuffle between the bassinet and Sienna's bed, texting our families, when the door flew open and a guy I'd never seen before, clean fade, designer hoodie, hospital visitor band, rushed in past the nurse and blurted, "Where is my daughter? I love you both. I'm taking you home." He said Sienna's name like it belonged to him. The nurse froze. I froze. Sienna didn't. She said, very calmly, "Liam, not now." My brain short-circuited. Liam? Before I could form a word, he was at the bassinet, crying. He looked at the baby like he'd been waiting his whole life. I stepped between them on adrenaline autopilot. "Who are you?" I asked, keeping my voice polite because, yes, I'm the guy who apologizes when strangers bump into me. He swallowed. I'm the father." The room tilted. The nurse said she was calling security. I told her not to yet. I wanted to hear whatever script this stranger had rehearsed. Sienna pulled her blanket up, chin high, eyes cold, brazen in a way I'd never seen. "Logan," she said, "he's confused." Then to Liam, "You can't be here. Tell him," Liam said, voice shaking. "You promised." It would be comforting to tell you this moment came out of nowhere, that we were perfect, and this was freak meteorite impact. But if I'm honest, the cracks started at 4 weeks pregnant. Sienna stopped letting me come to appointments because the clinic still had COVID rules. She changed her phone passcode because work. She started sleeping in the guest room around month 2, said I was breathing too loudly. Thought of that one before. By month 5, she was visiting her mom more, coming home with that hotel lobby perfume that doesn't wash out. I asked gentle questions. She gave fierce answers. "Stop smothering me. You're paranoid." I took up late-night walks so I wouldn't argue in circles with a wall. Back in the hospital room, security arrived. The officer asked for names. Liam gave first and last like he wanted it on a plaque. "We're in love," he told the officer, tears on his sneakers. She said when the baby came, we'd tell him. He flicked a glance at me like I was a temporary inconvenience, a rental. I've never been angrier and more polite at the same time. I asked the officer to please give us 5 minutes. He did, right outside the door, where every word would count. Sienna finally cracked. "No, not cracked," she performed. "Logan, you're making this dramatic," she said. "He's not well." Then, with perfect timing, she doubled over like a contraction hit. The nurses crowded her. Liam lifted a hand like he might steady her hip, and I stepped forward so fast the bassinet wheels squeaked. I said one sentence that changed the temperature of the room. "We're doing a paternity test." Sienna's face drained. Liam looked like he'd swallowed a battery. The nurse cleared her throat and said the hospital could connect us with a lab after discharge. I thanked her because apparently I still had manners while my life was catching fire. Security escorted Liam out. He didn't fight, just stared at the baby with a look that, if I'm being honest, I recognized. I'd had that look all morning. When the door clicked shut, Sienna finally spoke in a voice I'd never heard from her. "If you loved me, you wouldn't humiliate me like this." Humiliate her. That's how this started. And if you think the floor can't fall out twice, wait until I tell you who texted me congratulations 10 minutes later, and why his last name matched the hotel on Sienna's credit card. So right after the security guards walked Liam out of the maternity ward, my phone buzzed. I didn't even want to look at it. My brain was still lagging, trying to catch up with the fact that a man had just called my newborn his daughter. But then I saw the notification banner, and my stomach turned to ice. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Congrats, man. She finally had the baby. Tell Sienna she owes us that weekend at the Crescent." The Crescent, the boutique hotel she'd used a business retreat credit card at 6 weeks ago. I stared at the text, reading it 3, maybe 4 times before asking, "Who's this?" No answer. Just the 3 little dots that flash when someone's typing, then vanish. When I showed Sienna the message, she didn't even blink. "Spam," she said flatly. "You really think someone's congratulating you from a random number? Spam that knows about the baby? And the hotel?" I asked. She rolled her eyes like I was the one being dramatic. "You're spiraling, Logan. You've been waiting to call me a cheater since the 2nd trimester." Her calmness terrified me more than if she'd screamed. It was practiced, like she'd been rehearsing for this exact scene. Then the nurse came in to check vitals, and Sienna immediately switched into sweet new mom mode. She cooed over the baby, thanked the nurse for everything, smiled like a magazine cover. I stood there watching her, realizing I had no idea who the woman in front of me actually was. That night, I slept on the hospital couch, holding my phone like a lifeline. At around 3 a.m., I opened our shared credit card statement again, and there it was. The Crescent Boutique Hotel, 2-night stay, $627.94. The date? 9 months ago. The conception window. When I looked at our message history from that week, I found one of her texts that read, "Heading to that marketing retreat, babe. Wish you were here." I remember that night perfectly. She'd sent me a selfie in a hotel robe, glass of wine in hand, grinning like she'd just landed a promotion. I'd texted back, "Proud of you. Have fun." And she replied, "Love you always." I almost laughed out loud in the dark. Always. In the morning, I told her we'd be getting the DNA test as soon as possible. She smirked through her exhaustion. "Sure," she said, "if it'll calm your paranoia." Then she leaned back on the pillows, brushed her hair from her face, and added, "But when it comes back the way I know it will, you're going to owe me the biggest apology of your life." That line stuck in my head for days. When we got home from the hospital, my mom came over to help with the baby. Sienna put on her best wife act. Polite smiles, affectionate touches, even calling me babe, like she used to. Mom whispered later that she'd never seen Sienna so peaceful. Peaceful. Yeah, because she thought she'd buried the truth under charm and baby blankets. What she didn't know was that while she napped that afternoon, I opened her laptop. And that's when I found an email chain with the subject line, "Paternity results, urgent." Except the email wasn't to me. It was from her. And it was dated 2 weeks before she gave birth. The email was short, almost businesslike, but every word burned. "Hi, Dr. Mendoza. I still haven't told my husband. Please confirm again that early results show a 99.9% match with L.M. I just need to be absolutely sure before I make any decisions. Thank you. L.M. Liam Miller." My hands actually shook. I stared at the screen, the reality slamming down harder than any fight, any suspicion. She knew. For weeks. She'd sat across from me at dinner, let me paint the nursery, watch me practice holding a baby doll because I wanted to be a good dad, all while knowing that the real father was waiting for his cue to burst into the delivery room. I didn't say a word that night. I couldn't. I just printed the email, folded it into my wallet, and waited. 2 days later, I took her to the lab to get the DNA test she'd smugly agreed to. She chatted with the nurse about baby names, joked about postpartum cravings, even took a selfie in the waiting room. Meanwhile, I was holding the printed email in my jacket pocket like a loaded weapon. When we got home, she put the baby down for a nap and turned to me, all fake warmth and pity. "Logan, I hate what this stress is doing to you. You've barely slept. You should see someone." "You're right," I said. "I should talk to someone." I walked to the counter, pulled out the folded paper, and laid it between us. "How about Dr. Mendoza?" Her face went from confused to terrified in under a second. "What is that?" "Your email," I said. "The one where you confirmed my daughter isn't mine." She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Then, like clockwork, she started crying. "I was scared, Logan. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't even know what to believe." "Scared," I said quietly. "You let me plan a life around someone else's child. You let me talk about college savings. I didn't mean for it to happen," she screamed, tears cutting through her makeup. "Liam and I, it was only a few times. It was over before I even knew I was pregnant." "Then why was he in the delivery room?" That shut her up. She sank to her knees like her body had given out. "Please, Logan, please don't leave. We can fix this. You're the one who's always steady. You've always been the man who could forgive." I looked at her, this woman who used to make my heart race just by walking into a room, and felt nothing but exhaustion. "Get up," I said. "You're embarrassing yourself." She flinched like I'd slapped her, then whispered, "You'd really just walk away? After everything we built?" "We didn't build anything," I said. "I did. You just decorated it with lies." That night, I took the baby's birth certificate, our marriage license, and the email to an attorney. The next morning, I called my mom. When I told her, she went quiet. Then she said softly, Bring that little girl over, sweetheart. She still deserves love. We'll handle the rest later. That broke me. Not because of Sienna, but because my mother was right. The child wasn't mine by blood, but I'd held her first. And for now, that was enough to keep me from burning everything down. I wish I could tell you that the next few days were clean and simple, but nothing about betrayal ever is. Once I told both families, everything exploded in slow motion. My mom was furious, not the yelling kind, the quiet, shaking kind. She hugged me, then stepped back, eyes wet but steady. You did everything right, Logan, she said. Don't you dare let her twist that. Dad was less calm. He wanted to pay Liam a visit, and it took me a solid 5 minutes to convince him that assault charges wouldn't fix anything. You build a life for a woman, and this is what she gives you back, he muttered. Unbelievable. Meanwhile, Sienna's family went into full damage control mode. Her mother called me first, voice trembling, fake sweet. Logan, honey, I heard you're having a misunderstanding with Sienna. Misunderstanding? I said. She had a baby with another man. Well, these things are complicated, she said in a tone that made me want to laugh. Sienna's under a lot of stress. You know she's always been emotional. Emotional? I repeated. She conducted a year-long affair, lied about paternity, and let me raise a child that isn't mine. That's not emotional, that's sociopathic. Her mom actually sighed. You men never understand the pressure women are under. Just think before you throw away your marriage. I hung up. By that night, Sienna was at her parents' house, and the phone started lighting up again. Texts from her sister, her cousins, even a family friend trying to mediate. The tone was the same across all of them. Poor Sienna, she made a mistake. Don't be cruel. Mistake. That word started to feel like an insult. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk, not signing another man's name on your future. When the DNA results came in, it was official. 0% chance I was the father. Sienna called me the second she saw the report in her inbox. It doesn't change how much you mean to her, she said, voice shaky. You've been there since day one. She'll always think of you as her dad. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so tragically absurd. You're talking about her like she's a puppy we adopted. She's not ours, Sienna. She's yours and Liam's. She's mine, she snapped. Not his. He's unstable. He can't even keep a job. You're the father figure she needs. Do you hear yourself? I asked. You're still trying to sell me a lie even after the proof's in front of you. She went quiet, then her voice softened. Logan, please. I made one mistake. You made 100, I said. You just got caught once. After that, I stopped answering her calls. Her mother showed up at my house 2 days later, all dramatics and designer perfume. You're not just walking away, are you? She said. That child deserves stability. I opened the door wider and said, then maybe you should have raised a daughter who knew what that meant. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She just stared at me like she'd never seen a man who wasn't going to bend. That was the day I started to feel the anger burn off. Not gone, not forgiveness, but the first calm after the storm. I still didn't know what moving forward looked like. I just knew I couldn't keep orbiting around Sienna's chaos anymore. That night, I packed a bag, left the house key on the counter, and drove until the sunrise found me 2 states away, somewhere she couldn't reach me, and somewhere I could finally start breathing on my own again. I didn't plan the drive. I just got on the highway and kept going until the GPS map turned blank for a while. The air outside the city felt different, colder, quieter. I ended up in a lakeside town I'd visited once as a kid. Funny how pain pulls you toward old places that used to feel safe. I rented a small cabin for a week. The owner was an older guy named Hank, ex-military, probably mid-60s. He didn't ask questions, just handed me the keys and said, sometimes you've got to lose your life to find your peace, son. I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't have the energy. The first few days, I just sat by the water and replayed everything in my head like a movie I hated but couldn't stop watching. Sienna's calm lies, the email, her mother's guilt-tripping calls. Every scene ended the same. Me trying to fix things that she'd already burned. By the 4th day, something changed. I woke up before sunrise, walked to the dock, and realized I didn't want to keep hurting. I wanted something that was mine again. So I picked up my old camera, the one I'd used in college, and started taking photos. Just the lake, trees, empty benches. But it helped. The stillness. The patience. I could control the focus again, and for the first time in months, That word didn't sound like a curse. A week turned into 2. I extended my stay. Mom texted every couple of days, checking in without prying. Dad sent a photo of Cooper lying on the porch, staring down the driveway like he expected me to walk up any minute. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Unknown, you don't know me, but I think we share a problem. My wife is Sienna's friend from work. The message was followed by a photo, Sienna and another man, not Liam this time, sitting at a restaurant, holding hands across the table. The timestamp was 2 months before she gave birth. I stared at that photo for a long time. My first thought was that I should have been angrier. But I wasn't. I just felt done. Done trying to understand her. Done pretending she'd ever been capable of love that wasn't selfish. I called the guy. His name was Evan. Married, 2 kids, lived in the next city over. He'd discovered the affair the same week his wife found out she was pregnant. I thought Liam was the only one, he said bitterly. Guess she's got a rotation. We talked for nearly an hour. 2 strangers comparing notes on the same hurricane. When we hung up, he said something that stuck with me. She's not special, man. She's just practiced. That night, I drove back to the cabin, stood on the porch, and watched the sun go down. I realized I wasn't angry at her anymore. I was angry at myself for ignoring every red flag because I wanted the storybook ending. But stories like that aren't written for men like me. They're written for the ones who lie well and leave before sunrise. And for the first time, that didn't sound tragic. It sounded like freedom. After 3 weeks at the lake, I finally drove home. Not because I was ready, but because I was done hiding. The drive back felt like rewinding a movie I didn't want to watch again. Same exits, same landmarks, same quiet hum of a life that used to mean something. When I pulled into my driveway, the first thing I noticed was the missing car. Sienna's SUV was gone. The second thing was the envelope taped to the door. Inside was a short note in her looping handwriting. Logan, I'm staying with my parents for a while. I'm sorry for how everything happened. I know you'll never forgive me, but I need you to understand. I never stopped loving you. Please don't make things harder for me than they already are. Sienna. Even her apology was self-centered. Please don't make things harder for me. I crumpled the note, tossed it into the trash, and unlocked the door to what felt like a stranger's house. She'd taken some things, clothes, jewelry, her framed family first quote that now felt like a sick joke. But she'd left behind a few baby items, the bassinet, a blanket with our initials stitched in gold thread, and a stack of unopened mail. Among the mail was an envelope from an attorney, hers, a notice of custody and visitation proposal. She wanted me to share parental responsibility for a child that wasn't mine. I actually laughed. Out loud. The kind of laugh that sounds like it's cracking from the inside. I called her immediately. You've lost your mind, I said. Her voice came through calm, rehearsed. Logan, she knows you. You're the only father she's ever had. Don't punish her for what I did. Don't punish her? Sienna, I'm not punishing anyone. I'm stepping out of the circus you built. You're cruel, she snapped, the sweetness gone. You think you're some perfect victim, but you're not. You ignored me for years. I laughed again. I ignored you because you were too busy collecting lovers to notice we were married. That's when she broke. I could hear her sobbing through the phone, the same tired pattern, crying, begging, bargaining. Please, Logan, please just stay involved. You're the only stable person in her life. I was the only stable person in yours, I said quietly. And look where that got me. She didn't answer, just hung up. The next day, I took the documents to my lawyer. He read through them, frowned, and said, You're under no obligation. You're not the father, legally or biologically. She's just trying to keep you tethered. That word, tethered, hit hard. That's exactly what she'd done our entire marriage. She never wanted love. She wanted control. So I cut the rope. I signed what I needed to, paid the filing fees, and walked out of that office lighter than I'd felt in months. That night, I sat on the porch with a beer and texted my dad. It's over. He replied with one line. No, son. It's just beginning. And for the first time in a long time, I believed him. When the papers were filed, I naively thought that would be the end of it. I figured Sienna would retreat into her parents' house, and we'd each fade out of each other's lives like bad dreams. I was wrong. The week after I filed, her mother started calling again, this time with a sharper tone. You're ruining my daughter's life, she snapped. She's trying to raise a child alone, and you're dragging her through court. She dragged herself there. I said, I'm just making sure she can't pull me back in. That conversation earned me a string of text messages from Sienna. You're destroying me. You're heartless. You think you're better than everyone else. I didn't respond to a single one. Silence was the only language she hadn't learned to manipulate. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. Her lawyer reached out again, saying Sienna intended to resolve things peacefully and requested one in-person meeting to discuss financial closure. Against my better judgment, or maybe out of curiosity, I agreed. We met at a neutral cafe downtown. She arrived late, sunglasses on, trying too hard to look composed. When she took them off, I could see she hadn't been sleeping. Logan, she started softly, I know you hate me. I sipped my coffee. You earned that. I just want you to know, she continued, voice cracking. I didn't plan any of this. Liam, he promised things. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought. Stop. I raised a hand. Don't rewrite the script. You didn't think. You lied. Every day, every ultrasound, every dinner, every time you called me babe while you were texting him. Her jaw tightened. You're so cold. You mistake boundaries for cruelty, I said. She stared at me for a long moment, and then, like clockwork, the tears came. I've lost everything, she whispered. My job, my friends, my reputation. Can't you see I've suffered enough? I set my coffee down. You didn't lose me by accident, Sienna. You traded me. That's when she dropped the final bomb. Liam's gone, she said. He moved states. He won't even see the baby. I have nothing. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. But sympathy doesn't grow where trust dies. She reached across the table, tried to grab my hand, but I pulled back. Please, she said desperately, I'll do anything. I'll make things right. There's no right left, I said quietly. There's just over. When I left the cafe, I didn't look back. A week later, the divorce was finalized. No spousal support. No custody. Just signatures and silence. That night, I poured myself a drink, sat on the porch, and listened to the rain. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I felt empty. My mom called. You okay? Yeah, I said, staring at the dark sky. It's weird. I thought ending it would hurt more. She paused. That's because the hurting stopped long before the papers did. She was right. The marriage had died months before the ink dried, back when Sienna decided secrets were worth more than honesty. But something else was starting to take shape in the quiet. Not anger, not grief, freedom. And freedom, I was learning, can sound a lot like peace. The morning after the divorce papers were signed, I woke up expecting that old heaviness, the kind that settles on your chest and makes you dread getting out of bed. But it wasn't there. Just sunlight leaking through the blinds and Cooper's tail thumping against the floor. I made coffee, took it outside, and realized it was the first time in a year that the house didn't feel haunted. No perfume hanging in the air. No fake laughter echoing in my head. Just quiet. Honest quiet. For a few weeks, I focused on the basics. Work, the gym, fixing things around the house. Every screw I tightened, and every wall I painted felt like reclaiming space that had been stolen by lies. Still, the nights were strange. My body was used to tension, waiting for a text, a slammed door, an argument that started mid-sentence. Now, there was nothing. Peace is loud when you're not used to it. Then one evening, my dad showed up with takeout and a six-pack. Figured you could use company, he said, setting the bag on the counter. We sat on the porch eating burgers in silence for a while. Finally, he said, you know, when your mom and I got married, I thought love was about finding someone who makes life exciting. Turns out, it's about finding someone who doesn't make life harder than it needs to be. I smiled. You make it sound so simple. He shrugged. It is. You just picked a woman who thrived on chaos. You can't fix that. It was blunt, but it was exactly what I needed to hear. The next day, I took a long drive. No destination, just miles. Somewhere along a scenic overlook, I pulled over and started taking photos again. The same camera I'd used back at the lake. The same sense of quiet focus. That's when a woman about my age walked up with a small dog tugging on a leash. Sorry, she said, smiling. He thinks everyone with a camera has treats. Her name was Erin. She was a travel blogger, temporarily in town writing about local trails. We talked for half an hour about hiking spots, weather, and the ridiculousness of online reviews. She was funny, grounded, the opposite of drama. Before she left, she said, You've got a good eye. You should do something with that. It was the first compliment that didn't feel like manipulation. That night, I looked up photography clubs nearby and signed up for one. Just like that, a new chapter began. Not dramatic, not forced, just quietly unfolding. I still thought about Sienna sometimes. Usually when I saw new parents in the park or heard a baby cry in a store. But the ache was fading. The memories were losing their edges. I realized something one night while editing photos. She'd taken my trust, but she hadn't taken my ability to care. She didn't ruin love. She just taught me what it wasn't. And that, weirdly enough, felt like the first real piece of freedom. Months passed quietly, like life was finally exhaling after holding its breath too long. I kept up the photography, started running again, and even joined that hiking group Aaron had mentioned. It was strange how much normalcy felt like luxury after chaos. One Saturday morning, I went to a farmer's market downtown. I was taking photos of the stalls, the kind of bright, simple things that used to slip past me, when I heard someone say my name. I turned around and nearly froze. Sienna's sister, Marcy. She looked awkward, holding a paper bag of fruit, eyes darting everywhere but my face. "Hey, Logan," she said softly. "You look good." "Thanks," I said cautiously. "How's your family?" She sighed. "Messy. Sienna's been struggling. She moved out of her parents' place. She's doing therapy, finally." "Good for her." My voice was polite but flat. Marcy nodded, then hesitated. "She told me to tell you she's sorry. Not the fake kind. The real kind." I gave a small shrug. "I hope she means it. But I don't need it anymore." Marcy studied me for a second and smiled. "You really are different now? Lighter." She was right. The weight I'd carried, the constant suspicion, the shame, the need for closure, it was gone. What was left was just me. That afternoon, I met up with Aaron and a few people from the hiking group. We trekked a new trail through a canyon, sunlight cutting across the rocks like gold. I snapped a photo of the view at the top, and when I looked through the camera, Aaron was standing beside me, hair blowing in the wind, smiling at nothing in particular. She caught me looking. "What?" she laughed. "Nothing," I said. "It's just a good shot." That evening, we grabbed dinner with the group. When everyone else left, we stayed talking in the parking lot until the streetlights came on. It wasn't flirty, not heavy, just comfortable. When she finally said goodnight, she hugged me and whispered, "I'm glad you showed up that day at the Overlook." Driving home, I thought about how different this version of my life was: quiet, grounded, no begging, no lies. I used to think love was supposed to be all fireworks and passion. Now I knew it was supposed to feel like peace. Later that night, I opened my old photo folder, the one from before everything fell apart. I deleted every picture of Sienna, every last one. Then I made a new album and titled it The Restart. I added a photo of the canyon, a photo of Cooper asleep on the porch, and one of the sunrise from that morning, lights spilling across the lake where I'd once hidden from the world. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't documenting pain, I was capturing life. And I knew that somewhere ahead, maybe not tomorrow but someday soon, I'd be ready to let someone in again, not to replace what I'd lost, but to share what I'd finally found myself. It's been a full year since the day Sienna gave birth, the day everything I believed about my life flipped upside down. If you told me then that I'd be sitting here now, typing this with a quiet heart and a cup of coffee, I'd have laughed at you. Back then, I didn't think peace was something I'd ever feel again. I kept the house. It took months to strip away her presence, to repaint the walls, to get rid of the furniture we picked together, to make it mine again. My mom helped me plant a small garden in the backyard last spring. Now, every morning, I water it before work. The tomatoes are terrible, but the act itself feels like recovery, slow, patient, alive. The divorce papers are framed and tucked away in a drawer, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Survival has a signature. Aaron and I see each other a few times a week now. We're not rushing anything, and maybe that's why it feels right. She's calm in a way that makes me want to match her energy. No drama, no guessing games, just laughter and shared silence. She knows about Sienna, the baby, everything. When I first told her, she didn't pity me. She just said, "Then you've already done the hardest part. You kept your heart open." Sometimes I still think about that hospital room, about Liam's voice shouting that he was the father. It feels like a movie from another lifetime. There's no anger left, just distance. I don't wish Sienna harm. If she's really getting help, I hope she finds whatever she was always chasing. But her storm doesn't reach me anymore. My dad's advice rings in my head sometimes. Find someone who doesn't make life harder than it needs to be. Simple. True. The truth is, Sienna didn't break me. She revealed what needed fixing. The way I overextended, overtrusted, overforgave. I see that now not as weakness, but as proof of who I am. And that's something no betrayal can erase. Last weekend, Aaron and I hiked the ridge at sunrise. The same trail where we first met. At the top, I took a photo. Lights spilling over the valley, the world washed gold. When she saw it on the camera screen, she smiled and said, "That's the one. You should print it." I did. It's hanging by the front door now. Underneath it, I carved a small line into the wood. You can't control the storm, but you can rebuild after it. If someone reading this is where I was, broken, humiliated, drowning in someone else's lies, let me tell you this, the pain won't last. The world keeps turning, and someday, you'll wake up and realize the worst thing that ever happened to you was also the beginning of your freedom. Sienna once told me I breathe too loud in my sleep. Now, every night, I fall asleep to the sound of my own breathing, steady, peaceful, and finally my own. I have many other stories. Go to my channel, subscribe so you don't lose us. Give me a thumbs up